You could say all the time, and oh, we need it on the radio, we need the balance on the mainstream. No, you're missing it. It's not going to happen. It's not going to. If you, Audre Lorde said, and I wrote this in the thing. You can't tear down the master's house with the master's tools. So what are we doing? What are we doing? You can't keep looking for the same thing decade after decade from hip hop. Once it was, the CNN of the streets, as Chuck D said, gangster rap was gangster, but it was also social commentary. The Message, was social commentary. Fight the Power was social activism, was, protest music, we used to call it, right? Well, we still call it that, but we don't see it that much anymore. But that's because now, what you saw in the last decade, you saw the, Black Lives Matter movement, Colin Kaepernick, those movements were still hip hop. Kendrick Lamar was in, it was the We Gonna Be All Right was an anthem, but these activists were of the hip hop generation. So it's hip hop, even though it's not a song on the radio, it's still hip hop doing activism, hip hop influencing social justice policy. It doesn't have to be a song on the radio. If you read my editorial in the latest edition of my, what do you call those things that are newsletters? Newsletter. You'll see me say specifically, I know it's going to cause some trouble. Hip hop doesn't need more balance in the mainstream. Okay. It'd be nice. I agree. It'd be great. It's not going to happen. So get over it. It's not going to happen because once the music industry figured out what was going on, I said this in the interview, and hip hop community started to look like hip hop constituency, they're not going to put that music out. They're just not. Now, homeboy Sandman, my man, has said in the past, Outkast, great, one of the top selling rappers, rap groups of all time. They weren't peddling all that negativity. I get it. But I think overall, every genre of music, and in fact, every genre of art since, capitalism, looks to put out the least common denominator type of art. That's why there's blockbuster movies that don't have really any great filmmaking, dopeness to them. I know film buffs, that don't like any modern movies. I don't care how much. I love Godzilla versus King Kong and Godzilla. I love them. I'm a Godzilla fan. I think they're great. I love the Avengers. I love the superhero movies. But a lot of people were like, that's not film. That's not what we need. But that's not what's going to get put out in the masses. It's not going to happen. The best books are going to be, 50 Shades of Grey. It's not exactly, literary masterpieces. They're going to put out the least common denominator of art, any genre. It's what sells the most. It's just going to happen. We had a moment, some of us older folk in hip hop. Put some comments in the chat if you mess with me. I'm ranting now, but listen to what I'm saying. We had a moment in hip hop where we saw that kind of stuff on the radio, in the mainstream, in basically the only place we could get that kind of information. And I give credit when I do talks and I talk to the tech industry, and I give so much credit to KRS-One, You Must Learn, in 1989, teaching me, and to be fair, like a lot of my Black friends, about Black inventors and scientists that we had never been taught about in school. We went to the same school. They had Black families and we had Black teachers and we didn't learn about a lot of these inventors and scientists and amazing Black Americans that through all kind of adversity, way more before, modern times, somehow were inventors and scientists and made amazing things. So I talk about that stuff all the time and how influential that song was when it came on the radio. I get it. It's not going to happen anymore. It's not. If it ever happens again, it's going to be because the entire landscape will have shifted. This is the subject of my editorial here. The way it's going to shift is if we give that balance back. We do need that balance. It's just not. We waste too much time thinking about the radio. Mainstream doesn't even exist anymore. Half the music your kids are listening to ain't on the radio. It's on YouTube. It's on TikTok. There's no mainstream. Y'all keep saying it, but there's no mainstream anymore. There's no mainstream anymore. It doesn't exist. What might be free on the radio is also free on their phone. It's not what it was. But we do need that balance. So where are we going to get it? What we're really asking for is we want our young people to be exposed to the good side, quote unquote, of hip hop. Now, music is subjective. So what you might like as a song and our kids might like as a song, we might not find common ground. But we want them to be inspired like we were when we heard KRS-One teach us all those things and you must learn. When we heard Poor Righteous Teachers break down some things. When we heard Fight the Power by Public Enemy. And we think that it's going to come from the radio or from music. It's not. It can, because those artists still exist. Kendrick Lamar, We Gonna Be All Right, was the anthem of the Black Lives Matter movement and in the marches. So it still has its moments. But we can give that balance. This is why I tell you in the beginning of the show why I focus so much on hip hop and education, because we touch our young people early. We can influence them early. There are very great educational tie-ins with hip hop culture to help young people at very early ages do better in school, increase their academic output, increase their engagement. I talked to the people doing it on the show. I met them and I'm like, y'all are doing incredible work. I want my children to have hip hop in their school. I want my children to have hip hop in their kinder care, in their camps. That's where you're going to find this balance, because before they even get to have a phone, before they even turn on a radio by themselves, before they ever get TikTok, they will have learned that hip hop is constructive, hip hop is beautiful. They'll have learned from videos of educators and teaching artists that are women, that are, brilliant, that look like them, that sound like them, that come from the same communities, that are also intergenerational, that are demographics. They'll have gotten the idea early that hip hop is this beautiful, inclusive, welcoming, brilliant tool for delivery, giving them all kinds of goodness. That's where the balance is going to come from. So by the time they get out to the world, they'll already have a good foundation of what hip hop is and what it isn't. And then as those youngsters start becoming artists or start becoming writers or start becoming, teachers, they've come from a really good place where they've seen hip hop do wonderful things. They've seen hip hop help save lives in mental health settings, in educational settings, in health and wellness settings, in science and technology, in tie-ins to all kind of subject matter. We've talked about hip hop and financial literacy, hip hop and architecture, hip hop and forestry. Like there's so many it could connect with everything. They'll know that. They'll have seen it from day one. That's where the balance has to happen. So you can say all the time, and we need it on the radio. We need the balance on the mainstream. No, you're missing it. We need to be at school board meetings. You need to run for the school board. You need to ask them why they don't have any hip hop influence programs in the school district. You need to demand them. Find out who they are. Listen to this show. Share this show right now. Come on, give me a thumbs up if you're feeling me. Share the show right quick if you're feeling me. Say something in the comments. Let me know I'm on point here. If you start doing these things as grown-ups, that's our responsibility to hip hop. That's what we have to do. We can do that. We can support this show. We can spread love about the work that I do and the people that I talk to here on this show. That's where we're going to get the balance for our young kids. That's where they're going to find it. It's not going to happen. It's not going to, if you, Audre Lorde said, and I wrote this in the thing, you can't tear down the master's house with the master's tools. So what are we doing? What are we doing? We're gonna change like our what our youth are being exposed to by what? We don't own radio stations. We've seen the conglomerations take them out and solidify them. The people who are in radio stations, they're not our friends. They're capitalists. They're radio station employees. We're for corporations. They can't play what they want to play. I don't care if you're Funk Master Flex, who wouldn't do it anyway. Funk Master Flex posts the most drivel on his Instagram account, plays who knows what on his radio show. This isn't important. He's not an influencer in what our children could possibly get from hip hop that is anything else than just entertainment. And there's a place for it. I don't mind any of the music. I don't care. I don't care. I know people make a big deal of it. D1 has made a whole career out of it in the last year. Because it doesn't matter. It's not going to change. And if you want to do something to fix it, you have to put in that effort elsewhere. You can't tear down the master's house with the master's tools. So you could talk about conscious music all day. You could talk about like D1 does, and I get what D1's saying. I'm not mad at him at all. But it's reductive. It's simplistic. It's a yes and like yes and he can go after all the artists he wants and say, you should be doing better. You should be writing. You should be, know who your audience. You should be, the role model. It's never been the case, and it never will be until maybe we do what I'm suggesting, which is show the balance to our young people before they ever get out into the world. I'm not a churchgoer. I did go to church for a number of years. My ex-wife, her family, went to a black church, Pentecostal church, Guy Brewer Boulevard, South Jamaica, Queens, New York. Greater Rescue Church of Jesus Christ. And I had a few years there. And I had a, spiritual, I don't say awakening. I had a spiritual conversation with myself. I didn't end up like staying true to it, but I learned a lot. Well, I learned a lot about my friends in church. And I'm not a deeply religious person. I certainly respect what people believe. But I learned through my family at the time and my friends that when you backslide, right, you're always everyone's going to backslide. You get your baptism. And this is grown folk baptism, like 8, 13, 14, 15, 16-year-old baptism. This Pentecostal church in Jamaica, Queens. So if you know the different, people get baptized at different times. You get baptized. And you're like, you brought up in the church. You went to church every Sunday. You went, Bible study. You went to, you were there early. Again, long church, black churches. You know how it goes, like hours, like praise and devotion, and then all the other things. You pay your tithes. Then you pay building fund. You know what it is. You go through all these things, but then you're going to backslide. You're almost certainly going to backslide and go into the world and do all the terrible things. I've learned that you'll probably be at least better off than folks who haven't had that foundation. You may not return to the Lord fully, but you're going to have something in you that's a good foundation, because at its foundation, all religions try to get you to be a good person, right? They try to get you to live righteously and do the right thing and treat your neighbor like you want to be treated, and all the good religious-y things. So you'll probably be all right. You'll be a little better off, because in your heart, somewhere in your insides, you're going to be, you're a good person. You had a good foundation. Same thing with parents in the house. Your parents might get divorced, and then you're going to wild out for a few years. That's what I did. I was lucky. I had 2 parents until I was about 16. They split up, and I wilded out. That was it. I was off the rocker because it messed me up, and no one took care of me in the way I needed to be taken care of. And, that's what happens. But I had a good foundation. My parents were good people. They cared for me. I wasn't mistreated. And I found my way back to being a little bit more sensible over the years. All I'm saying is that if you go off of those, we know that you give a child a good foundation. You show a child something good and positive when they're young, and they're going to have that at their foundation. It's going to be their default when they hear hip hop, when they see hip hop. It's like having a good teacher. My best teacher was my 3rd grade teacher. Also became my 4th grade teacher. I was so lucky. She moved up with us. Mrs. McGlory. I loved her. She was great. She was my best teacher. 3rd grade. She was sweet. She was kind. She listened to us. She moved up with us, made us feel like we were special. 3rd grade. My favorite teacher, her daughter, Natasha, her husband, Preston, passed. Why do I know these things? Her husband, God bless his soul, passed away like during the school year. He was a truck driver, and there was a thing, and he passed away. We had to go to the funerals, like one of the first funerals I think I went to, or, certainly like not my family. Mrs. McGlory, loved her to death. She was great. So I could talk about her today. It's 940,000 years later, and tell you that it's because of that great foundation. So if you want to fix, quote unquote, hip hop, stop thinking you're going to use the master's tools. Stop wasting your time, your energy, your effort. What you can do is give this video a thumbs up. You can share it with your people. You can certainly help the cause. Patreon.com/Manny Faces. You see what I'm trying to do here, y'all? Help me out. We're looking for some bigger, better ways to keep the lights on and do this stuff. But I don't know, man. Not a lot of folks want to hear the talk we're talking. So it might be up to us, which means it's up to y'all. Patreon.com/Manny Faces. I got merch now, some new designs on the t-shirts and the hoodies. You can see that at hiphopcouldssaveamerica.com. And now there's a button for merch. So hiphopcouldssaveamerica.com. If you're watching on YouTube, give us a thumbs up. Share the video. I really appreciate y'all being here with me tonight. Thank you to everyone who's tuned in.
Manny Faces.
You sick for this one. Sick for this one.